banks of the Colorado River in Lake Mead to the homes and businesses in Southern Nevada, welcome to Water Smarts, the podcast pumping from the heart of Las Vegas, where we engage with the experts who keep the water flowing throughout Southern Nevada. I'm Bronson Mack.
And I'm Zuelke. From how we treat it, deliver it, use it, protect it, and conserve it, the Water Smarts podcast is all about water in Southern Nevada. We hope to make you a little smarter about the one thing that keeps us all connected: water.
Crystal, hey, we're back on the pod. How you doing today?
I'm good. I'm excited for this little spin-off series we're doing today, if you want to call it.
I know, right? We're going to take a little bit of a different approach today, and I'm pretty excited about it. But then again, I just get geeked out talking about water, talking about conservation, talking about all the things that Southern Nevadans are doing day after day in order to make sure that we can continue to maintain a reliable and sustainable water supply for the 2.3 million people that call this wonderful Mojave Desert home.
Yeah, I do too. It's kind of funny whenever we have like family in town or friends visiting, especially from the Midwest, and they're like, oh, and they learn what I do and working in water. They always want to ask questions. And my husband's like, oh gosh, do you really want to open the floodgate? No pun intended.
Well, it's funny you say that because like anytime I'm hanging out with my brothers or what have you, the topic comes up and I'll start talking about water and I'll hear my younger brother across the room going like, oh, what are you talking about water again over there? You know, and I'm like, well, that's kind of what we do. So yeah, it's only natural. But the thing that we've really been getting some questions on as of recently, and we are recording this in early February, is what is going on with the snowpack in the Colorado Rockies? And we have had a very warm winter here in Southern Nevada. And a lot of times that does mean that it's warmer throughout the West. That is what we are seeing and have been seeing this winter. And the snowpack this year in the Rockies is not looking good. I mean, as we stand today, the snowpack is just under 40% of what we call the median average. Ultimately, what that means is there is not a lot of snow up there in the Rockies. And that runoff period usually starts, that snow begins to melt and start running off right around the April timeframe. So there's still a few months, but the way things appear right now in the forecasting, it's going to be a very, very dry year. That has implications for us, for water levels in Lake Powell, for flows of the Colorado River, water levels in Lake Mead. Just further emphasizes the importance of our community continuing doing what we're doing to conserve water, changing those sprinkler clocks, replacing that grass, reporting water waste, fixing leaks on the property. All of those things are major contributors to how we can save water here in the desert.
You know, we get a lot of questions about this, and you and I both work in communications for the Southern Nevada Water Authority and the Las Vegas Valley Water District. I see a lot of stuff with my team on social media. You get a lot of questions from the media, and your team does a lot of outreach with the community. And people have questions about that, you know, knowing that we're in shortage. They see our messages about why conservation is so important. And I would say one of the biggest questions we get that comes out of this is, if the drought is expected to continue, why do we keep building? Why do we keep getting new homes and new businesses? Well, there's a lot to this, and there's really not just one answer. First of all, the SNWA is agnostic when it comes to the growth in this valley. And that's actually why SNWA was created, to ensure that all of the municipalities in Southern Nevada have the water they need to support their residents and businesses. So that's Henderson, that's North Las Vegas, the Las Vegas Valley Water District for its service area, you know, making sure that water is there for those residents. It's really not a matter of if we grow, but how we grow. And we've proven over the last couple of decades that we are doing this right. And so the question is how, and how can we continue? Well, nearly 100% of the water we use indoors is recycled, and it's returned to Lake Mead. So all of your shower and toilet water that makes its way through the sewer system, it goes into a wastewater treatment plant where it's highly treated, and then it's put back into the Las Vegas wash, and then back out where it's polished some more, and then it flows back into the lake where it started. For every gallon that we put in, we can take a gallon out, and that really stretches our water supply. That's what makes it sustainable for those of us that still live here in the community. We're kind of like a perpetual water machine. Really, we just only consume water through outdoor water use, evaporative cooling systems, septic systems. And that's why we put so much of our focus on outdoor conservation. That's why we talk about watering restrictions. And we have conservation-focused ordinances to reduce outdoor water use, like prohibiting grass, converting high water use evaporative cooling systems that are seen in a lot of resorts and big businesses, converting those to dry cooling ones, and prohibiting the installation of evaporative coolers. So we're doing a lot of different things to try to reduce our outdoor water use as a community. But keep in mind, Las Vegas did stop growing once in 2008. We had that economic recession that lasted for about 6 or 7 years that resulted in very little economic development in our community. It wasn't a good time for a lot of people. And so I don't think we want to go back to that.
You are absolutely right. And I think you hit on a lot of really important things. Look, our valley has continued to grow. People are going to continue to move to Las Vegas. And quite honestly, if you are somebody who moved to Las Vegas after this drought started, after we implemented these comprehensive water conservation programs and incentives and policies, which really started in 2003, the reason that you were able to move here and have the quality of life you do is because of all of the conservation that has been going on since 2003. To take that even a step further, when you look at the policies that Southern Nevada has implemented for new development, means that the homes we're building today are much more water efficient than the homes that we built 20, 30, 40 years ago. Since about 2020, we've seen more than 60,000 new service connections in this valley. But water use has actually decreased during that time by more than 10%. Just like you said, Crystal, it's not if we grow, but it's how we grow. Aside from growth, we also hear things like, hey, residents are asked to conserve. And certainly residents represent 60% of our community's total water use. Of all of the water delivered into Las Vegas, 60% of that water is consumed by us as residents. The remaining 40% is consumed through a variety of other non-residential water uses. So we as residents aren't the only ones that are conserving. You know, businesses are doing their part, and that's one of the things that we hear all the time. What are businesses doing to conserve? I'll just start by saying, first of all, businesses have to follow the same watering restrictions that we do as residents. Businesses right now in commercial properties and even HOA common areas, they're all working toward removing non-functional grass. Non-functional grass is that decorative grass that doesn't provide any recreational benefit. That needs to be removed by the end of 2026. There's also that prohibition on evaporative cooling. Evaporative cooling is the second largest consumption of water in our valley. Number one consumption of water is landscaping. Evaporative cooling, that water evaporates, but it's cooling indoor spaces, mostly of large commercial buildings. And then golf courses are on water budgets. So it really is an all hands on deck community-wide effort. It's not just residents, it's everybody contributing to our water conservation success.
Yeah, and let's not forget resorts, because that's another big one. I think the resorts get a bad rap sometimes because they're big, they're all compiled together there on the Las Vegas Strip and in downtown Las Vegas. And we get, 38 to 40 million visitors a year. And so people have this thought that the strip resorts are using a ton of our water supply. But the reality is that they really are implementing their own water-saving technologies. We've done podcasts with like MGM Resorts, for example, and all the things that they're doing to reduce their water footprint. And really, resorts, most of their water use is indoors, and they have to maintain water efficiency plans. And I know that a lot of them have built water conservation into their overall sustainability efforts.
Yeah, just to add on to that, Las Vegas, and especially the Las Vegas Strip, it is like an adult playground, right? It's sort of this facade in a lot of respects. And while it might look like there's a lot of excess that's taking place there, especially when you're looking at water features, right? We hear the Bellagio fountain all the time. Key thing to know about the Bellagio fountain is it is not using any Colorado River water. The water that is used and delivered to our homes and businesses is not the water that is in the Bellagio fountain. They have a privately owned well. They do use groundwater to refill that Bellagio fountain. The other thing about resorts, Crystal, is our gaming industry here employs more than 20% of Nevada's total workforce. It might even be closer to 25%. I think the last numbers I saw were, between 20 and 25%. It accounts for something on the order of $98 billion of our state's economic activity. And that's more than 35% of the state's gross domestic product. So it is a huge contributor to the economic engine for our state. But they do that by consuming and using less than 7% of Southern Nevada's water resources. So they use a very small portion of water, and that small portion of water is invested into our number one economic industry and our largest employment sector.
Yeah, and I think, at this point, so many people have removed their grass and replaced it with desert landscaping, water smart landscaping. So when we see grass, when we're driving through our communities and our neighborhoods, and you go to the grocery store or you're going to your dentist, you might see grass still. And those stick out like a sore thumb these days because we have removed so much grass. But sometimes you can't really see the whole picture, right? So you might not realize what a business or a resort has implemented. So just because you don't see the water conservation in action doesn't mean it's not happening. If you drive by a park or golf course, you might see it watering for consecutive days in the spring or midday in the summer. And so one of the questions we get asked is, why is my local park watering every day? Don't they have to follow the same watering restrictions that I do? I'm changing my clock. I'm following the rules. Well, they do. Community parks have to follow watering restrictions. However, because they have so many irrigation stations, think about how large they are compared to your smaller landscape. And there just aren't always enough hours in the day, especially in summertime, for them to complete their full watering cycle. And also parks have to contend with public uses. Think about kids out there playing soccer, or think about Sunset Park, and they have their big Renaissance Festival every year, and all the other different activities that take place at parks. They just can't water all the time. They have to kind of compete with the most popular times of the day that the park is being used. And we want people to use parks. They're there to recreate. So there's a lot of nuances to when and how a park might be able to water their grass. Public parks, though, cannot exceed the number of water days per week, just like the rest of us, but they can and do get approval for a watering schedule that might be on different days than the rest of the neighborhood.
Yeah, you make a good point there, right? And then I guess like tangential to parks are golf courses. Golf courses are, and listen, I guess I should go full disclosure. I like to get out there and swing the sticks. I'm a bit of a hacker on the golf course, but certainly I get out there and take advantage of some of the world-class golf that we have here in our community and some of the most affordable golf that certainly I have ever come across. But golf courses are on water budgets. So they have a limited amount of water that they're able to use each year, depending on how much acreage they have to irrigate. So golf courses, because they are on those water budgets, they are afforded flexibility in when they apply that water. And that's why you might see a golf course watering before 7 p.m. in summer or multiple times in spring when they're doing their overseeding and they're working to maintain that golf course. But the other thing that golf courses have done, aside from being on water budgets, is investment. And they have invested in advanced technologies that help ensure that they are really efficiently using that water. They've got soil sensors, moisture monitoring units. They have high efficiency irrigation systems. They have smart controllers. The other thing that golf courses have are agronomists. These are actually the individuals that are responsible for caring for that grass. And they are very competent water managers. One other thing, Crystal, golf courses have removed enough grass to equal 9 professionally sized golf courses. And that's just taking out grass that is outside of the fairways, of the tee boxes, and of the greens. So we've really seen our golf courses go from wall-to-wall carpeting of grass to more desert-style grass, and they've done that so that they can make sure that they're staying within their limited water budgets that they have each year. And I guess along with golf courses, one of the other things I'll just mention, that's data centers. We get a lot of questions about data centers, and certainly some data centers, throughout the United States have a high demand for water. But water is very critical to the cooling process of a data center. If you think about a data center, think about a warehouse, and that warehouse is full of servers. and those servers are all giving off heat. So it's really important that the internal temperature within these data centers is controlled so that the servers don't overheat. I guess the good news for us here in Southern Nevada is we certainly have some data centers, but we have some data centers that are extremely water efficient. They don't have any evaporative cooling uses to them. They are using mechanical cooling. So they're doing their climate control without having that high demand for water. And then on top of that, with the moratorium that we have on new evaporative cooling systems, any new data centers that will be built in Las Vegas are going to be mechanically cooled. So they are going to be much more water efficient than a data center that would be using an evaporative cooling unit. So local data centers have stepped up. They're making sure that their new developments are water smart, and they're also making investments in their existing evaporative cooling systems to help ensure that they're running efficiently. And we have some rebates for that to help them do it.
Yeah, exactly. So evaporative cooling systems, they're big, large, heavy water users. These systems cost a lot. So the SNWA does have a rebate through its Water Efficient Technologies program that can help existing businesses replace those coolers with dry cooling systems. Dry cool systems can save a ton of water for a business, especially large properties like a strip resort or schools throughout the valley. So look, I know it's hot here. I grew up in Las Vegas. I am a lot less tolerant of the heat than I was when I was a kid playing on the streets of Las Vegas and the empty desert around my house. I get it. It's hot. And we do know that it is going to get not only warmer, but also drier. So people want to know about the Water Smart Landscapes rebate and grass prohibition ordinances. They ask a lot on social media. Isn't getting rid of grass and vegetation counterproductive in the desert and going to just make it hotter than it already is? Well, we're not promoting people to replace grass with rocks and cacti. We don't want that. We want the diversity in the landscape. Plants and trees are essential to our climate and to a water smart landscape. We want that vegetation to exist, which is why the Water Smart Landscapes rebate program requires at least 50% canopy and ground coverage. This is required so that a property has shade, which also reduces the heat absorption from the landscaping. But the fact is, some of the plants and trees we love, or those that were planted here decades ago, simply can't handle the rising temperatures. I can't remember. I know we've done a podcast about this, about how hot it's expected to get over the coming years, but it is expected to rise, I want to say like 5 degrees or more over a period of time. So it's going to be an issue for a lot of the species that were planted here years ago, and they're just not going to be able to make it.
Yeah, you hit on something there that I think is really timely right now. Like you said, we get these questions from folks with regards to replacing grass with drip irrigated trees and plants. You hit on it perfectly there, that the shade is what is critical. It's why we require trees and plants to be installed if you're going to qualify for the Water Smart Landscape rebate. That shade really helps to minimize the potential implications of heat and the heat island that we have here in Las Vegas. And look, make no mistake, like every community in the United States deals with heat islands. And heat islands are really caused by our built environment. All of the concrete, all of the asphalt, all of the block walls, all of these hardscapes that we have here retain heat, and then it radiates that heat. And then what happens as it's radiating that heat, our overnight temperatures don't get as low as they would get if Las Vegas was not here. And then when the sun comes up the next day, we start the day warmer. We get to our peak temperatures a little bit earlier, and then we sustain a peak temperature longer throughout the day. So where we can have shade over those hardscapes, that really helps to reduce the amount of solar radiation that gets absorbed and then radiated at night. And you also referenced, Crystal, that it is going to get hotter. In fact, the climatologists are telling us that we could see 100 or more days in which we will have above 100 degrees. We already average about 78, 79 days a year above 100 degrees. If we end up with 100 or more days above 100 degrees, that's basically another month of summer in a lot of respects. And some of the trees that we have here, some of the tree species are not going to adapt. In 2017, we did an analysis so that we could update the regional plant list and make sure that the trees and plants that are on that list are going to be able to adapt to this warmer, drier future ahead. And that study looked at the 100 most popular trees and plants, most common trees and plants that we see within our landscapes in this valley. And it found that about 36% of those plants, and some of those are trees, will be living outside of their heat tolerance in this valley. And some of those trees that are especially vulnerable are the Mondale pine, the Afghan pine, the Aleppo pine, the privet, the ash, the elm. You know, these are trees that we have in a lot of respects, we have in abundance here in the valley, and they are going to continue to struggle. We're already seeing them struggle. In fact, 2024, that summer of 2024, I certainly remember it fondly. Well, I shouldn't say fondly. I certainly remember it because my air conditioner went out. And that was a summer where we had about a week and a half where temperatures were hovering, 115 and above.
Yeah.
So we were just feeling that constant heat. And we really saw a lot of the tree species, some of these legacy trees that we've had in our valley, we really saw them having a hard time adapting and becoming very stressed. And when trees get stressed, that makes them vulnerable to different kinds of pests and different kinds of disease, whether that's like the sooty canker, which is like a bacterial disease that's affecting many of the ash and elm trees, the pine beetle or bark beetle affecting pine trees. We actually did some podcasts. You referenced this. We did podcasts with local arborists from the city of Henderson, as well as from North Las Vegas. We've been talking to Star Nursery. We're going to be talking to Star Nursery again on an upcoming podcast. So the Southern Nevada Water Authority has its tree rebate program. If you install a tree as you're taking out your grass, we'll give you an extra $100. We've also had partnerships with Impact Nevada and a new partnership with Nevada Plants. Those efforts are going to be installing thousands of new trees. And through that tree rebate, that extra $100 per tree, we've seen more than 8,000 new trees installed. And when you combine those efforts, we're already looking at, additional tree canopy once these trees get to maturity of about 3.5 million square feet. We're continuing to adapt. We're adapting to climate change. We're building resiliency in this valley. And I'm sure that we will continue to be doing that to protect and enhance our trees and shade that are going to be so critical as it gets a little bit hotter. But Crystal, I don't know about you, but when it gets hotter, the swimming pool is usually calling, right?
Oh my gosh. As you were talking about that summer, which by the way, I had installed a new landscape in my backyard. I started in February and I thought that was enough time to do the landscape in the spring. I was thinking April, but they were busy and they were like, we can't get to your landscape until August. And I was like, whoa, okay. But they moved it up. And the day they finished my landscape was that day it was 119 degrees or something?
It was like 119 degrees. I keep wanting to say 120, but I don't think we quite got to 120.
Yeah. I felt so bad for these guys working and installing all this stuff in our backyard in that heat. And I thought, how is this landscape going to survive the way the summer is going and how hot it was? But it beautifully adjusted to everything. And that's because we picked really desert appropriate plants. And, I put in a shade tree in the backyard. So all that to come back to pools, because as you were talking about that hot summer we had, I was thinking, I wonder if we're going to start pool season early this year. If it's any indicator of what we're feeling right now in February, we might start pool season earlier than normal, which means people are going to have to drain and refill their pools to get them ready for the season. And so if you're a Las Vegas Valley Water District customer, a lot of people may experience excessive use charges when they have to fill their pools because it takes a lot to fill them up. Yep. What can you share with our pool owner listeners to help them avoid that?
I actually was a pool man for about 5 years while I was in college, so I've got a little familiarity here, and I also understand what some of the policies are for pools. If you are a pool owner, you probably are already aware that if you're draining and refilling your swimming pool, the first thing you need to make sure that you're doing is you're draining your swimming pool into the sanitary sewer system. You do not want to drain your swimming pool just out to the gutter in front of your house or anywhere else. By putting it into the sanitary sewer system, that water gets reclaimed treated and returned back to Lake Mead. So that's the sustainable way. And ultimately, that's what the ordinances within Clark County and all of the municipalities in Southern Nevada do require. Keep in mind that the water that you used for your pool, because sometimes we hear from people saying, well, I should get credit for the fact that I drained my pool into the sanitary sewer. Totally understand. I think that's at least a reasonable thought to have. But just keep in mind, when you have water in your pool and it's been there for a couple of years, you may have initially put drinking water in your pool, filled up from your hose at your house. But since that water has been there in your swimming pool, that chemistry has changed. It's no longer drinking water. It now has different kinds of soda ash and chlorine and acid. And ultimately, that water needs some kind of treatment to be associated with it, right? This is where the city of Henderson, the Clark County Water Reclamation District, City of Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, all of our wastewater providers come into play, because if you drain to the sanitary sewer system, they will make sure that they treat your pool water and allow that to be safely recycled. When you drain your pool and you go to refill it, if you are a Las Vegas Valley Water District customer, yeah, you probably are going to have to pay more for that water going into your swimming pool. The water district's excessive use charges will likely apply once you begin to fill that pool. So one thing that you can certainly do is call the Las Vegas Valley Water District. Find out when your next meter read date is. When is my meter going to be read? And they'll actually be able to tell you what that next date is. And then you can start filling your swimming pool the day before your meter read. And then you can finish filling your swimming pool after your meter read. You can kind of split your water use across 2 different billing periods. That will at least help you to minimize the potential of receiving an excessive use charge. But then again, just on top of that, just know and take it into account that when you are refilling your swimming pool, it's probably going to cost you a little bit more this time than it did last time. Another tip is that the Las Vegas Valley Water District has a bill estimator on its website. And so you can go and put in how many gallons your swimming pool is, and you'll actually be able to estimate what your bill will be. So that just helps you make a more informed decision about how and when to drain and refill your swimming pool.
Yeah, I think that bill estimator is a great resource for anybody who just wants to check out their bill, because for a lot of us, it changes seasonally as well, right? We're watering more in the summertime. So you might want to just take a peek at what your water is going to look like at summer versus winter, when we're only really watering 1 day a week. So Bronson, another thing that comes up is, what are we doing about new water sources? And so, I would say not more of a question. We get told, at least on social media, about all the ways we could bring more water here to Southern Nevada, but they're not all really that practical or just that simple to do. So what is SNWA doing to bring more water to Southern Nevada? Well, as we've talked about at length in this podcast so far, conservation is really number one for us. It's the most cost-effective water resource. And honestly, it's the easiest. It's really the easiest thing that we can all do that contributes to it. Again, we recycle nearly all indoor water. We've already increased our water supply through virgin and muddy river water. So that's been an addition to our water resource portfolio for about 2 decades now. People want to know about desalination. We are looking at desalination projects in Mexico and California, but in exchange for a share of Mexico's or California's Colorado River water in Lake Mead. Also, we helped fund a large-scale water recycling project in California in exchange for some of California's Colorado River water. California will treat its wastewater just like we do, rather than discharging it to the Pacific Ocean. And then that recycled water will be injected into their groundwater aquifer, where it can be recovered when it's needed. And for our participation in that project, we get a share of the water. It stays in Lake Mead. Rather than pipe and pump the water from LA to Las Vegas, we would exchange it for a like amount of California's water supply from Lake Mead. So it's really a smart solution to help sustain our community's water supply. And those are just some of the bigger things that we're doing.
Crystal, we also have heard in the past about, hey, why don't we just pipe water from the Mississippi River and put it into Lake Mead? Or why don't we tap the Great Lakes? There's a ton of water up there. Why don't we tap that Great Lakes water and bring it down? And we've taken a look at some of that. And, the Mississippi one especially, I think, is particularly interesting. There are certainly years where the flows of the Mississippi are so low that they can't move barges upstream and downstream. And then you're talking about having to convey that water, pipe and pump that water from the Mississippi across multiple states. I don't even know how many county lines, and the permitting challenges associated with that. The environmental analysis alone really does make it rather prohibitive to do. Not to mention the cost associated with it. I mean, you're talking about now the most expensive water that would be available to us. So those really aren't viable options. And when it comes to the Great Lakes, well, those states that share the Great Lakes have a compact of their own. And that compact indicates that they are not exporting any Great Lake water to any other states. So there's a lot of variables that are involved. Like you said at the beginning of this question, conservation, right? Protecting and conserving and efficiently using the water resources that we already have is obviously our best and most affordable option. But we do maintain a 50-year water resource plan. We are storing water, our unused Colorado River water. We have water stored in Lake Mead. We have water stored in our local aquifer in Arizona, as well as in California. That's all water that is available to us for our future use. And in total, it equals about 11, 12 years of water supply that we have stored for our future. So using the water we have as efficiently as we have been doing. Southern Nevada has been a leader in conservation. The residents of Southern Nevada, the businesses here in our community have all been contributing collectively to these conservation efforts. And that is why it has been so successful. I guess we sign off here, Crystal, by really just reminding everyone, keep doing the things that you have been doing. Keep changing that sprinkler clock every season. If you have grass at your property and you've been thinking about changing it to water efficient landscaping, there's no better time than now. The rebates are higher, about as high as they've ever been. It's $5 a square foot for a residential rebate. And if you live in the city of Henderson or if you're served by the Las Vegas Valley Water District, there are additional incentives that will be added to that, additional financial incentives to help you offset that cost. Not only will you reduce your water bill, but you're going to bring some beautiful new curb appeal to your property. And being somebody who converted their grass landscape and front yard a number of years ago, I am so glad that I did. My yard it's one of the nicest yards on the block. Not to say that there aren't other nice yards on the block, but I'm really happy with the way mine turned out. And we have a lot of resources available to you. Just go online, visit snwa.com. You can find how-to videos. You can find information on how to fix leaks. You can find tips to run your irrigation system efficiently and still maintain all of those beautiful trees and plants that you have. We've got water smart plumbers and landscapers. We've got plant lists for your yard. And if you're really interested in water resources, take a look at the water resource plan. It is very reader friendly. You do not have to have a PhD in order to understand it. So if there are particular things you're interested in when it comes to our community's water supply, check out that water resource plan on snwa.com. Crystal, I think we said it all.
I think so. We covered quite a bit today.
But if you have questions and other things that you would like to know about, you can find us on social media, Southern Nevada Water Authority. We're on X, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. We're on YouTube as well. Lots of important YouTube videos. Mm-hmm. So take a visit to that. Crystal's team does a great job making sure that that information is available in those digital spaces. And you can also access all of that information from your smartphone. So that's it for this episode here on the Water Smarts Podcast. We hope you subscribe and listen next time. And if you like the show, feel free to give us a rating. It really helps us reach more Southern Nevadans. And if you want more information on conservation, water quality, new technologies, everything you need to know to be water smart, or if you want to add a question for a future podcast, you can find us on our website at snwa.com. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you here next time on Water Smarts.